Hi, I'd like to welcome you again to my YouTube channel, and like I promised, I'll be discussing with you the systems life cycle, starting with the development and testing phase. Previously, we looked at the different stages that we looked at, and we said that the systems life cycle has various stages, which include analysis, design, development and testing, implementation, documentation, and then evaluation. And we also say that each stage is very important for the development of a given system because it helps you to know how your system is progressing. In my previous video, I shared about the analysis and design phase. We saw what is done in those two stages. We said we analyze the existing systems, we study them and try to use the existing system to develop the new one. So today I'm going to share with you the development and testing stage. First, in the development stage, we have to make sure that once the analysis is completed, once you've analyzed, once you've studied the existing system, the next stage is to develop. You must develop. You need to. The next stage of automatically becomes developing the next system. Now, under the development stage, it is where we look at the various aspects of the system and we try to finalize them. What do I mean? For example, if the system contains files like a database, then it is in this development stage that the file structure will be needed to be finalized. What do I mean? What type of data am I going to store in each field? What is the length of each field? What field will be the key field? How will the data files be linked? Such things. So it's in the development stage that we look at the system that we want to develop and try to finalize the file structures that we're going to design. And of course, once the file structure has been determined, it is then created and tested to make sure that it fully functions and it will be robust as soon as the system goes live. So next, we must make sure that the validation routines and verification methods to be used ensure that the correct data is stored in the files. What is validation? Now, validation is where basically we find out, we make sure that the data entered matches the data entered matches the set rules. Whereas verification simply makes sure that the data entered into the system matches the original source of data. So it is under the development stage that we make sure that all the validation routines and verification methods make sure that the correct data is stored in the files. It is also under the development stage that we design the user interface. What is a user interface? A user interface basically is a platform, is a way a user will interact with the hardware. For every software that you've designed, you've looked at the existing system. How have they been inputting data? How is data output? What type of hardware are you going to use for the system? How will people interface? How will people interact with this hardware? How will the screens that will be used to collect the data be presented? How will the screens be presented when outputting data? How, in case I need specialized hardware, how am I going to use it? How is it supposed to be done? And how am I going to integrate it into my system? Of course, all this is collected and done within the development stage, and after which it is tested, and to make sure that the user screens that you've decided to use, the user interface you've decided to use is user-friendly, and the correct output is associated with the inputs to the system. So all this is done during the development stage. Of course, after the development stage, after you've designed the user interface, after you design the different system files, after you've designed the validation rules and verification methods, it is important, it is key that we test our system. What do we do under the testing phase? Under the testing, the system is broken down into various small parts, which we're going to call modules. And each small part, what we call the module, is given to a different programmer. The programmer designs that module, develops it, and then tests it to make sure that it functions properly. And if any problems arise from the testing, the programmer redesigns, re-strategizes the given module until there are no more problems, until there are no errors occurring from the given module. Once the different modules have been tested and you have made sure that no errors are arising, everything is at par, everything is perfect, that's when the different modules are combined together to form the system. Now, once the system has, or once all the different modules have been combined together, we do the actual testing of the system with data. Now, once we're testing data, we usually have different types of data which we use. We have 4 specific types of data we use. One, we have normal data. Normal data is the data that is acceptable or reasonable and has a known outcome. For example, if I'm dealing with dates, if I'm dealing with months of the year, of course I know the months are only 12. They run from 1 to 12. So my normal data is any number between 1 and 12. 1 to 12. That's normal data. Anything between that is acceptable. It is very normal because we know that months are January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Each month is represented by one number. So our normal data, it is reasonable, it is acceptable. So anything from 1 to 12 is acceptable when we're dealing with months of the year. Now we have abnormal data. Abnormal data is data outside the limits. It's abnormal, it is not needed. It goes beyond the limits of acceptability. It is a wrong type of data. It should be rejected. It doesn't fit within our range. It will cause an error message. Now imagine I'm inputting months of the year. I'm entering data about months of the year. What would be our normal data? Our abnormal data. Remember, our normal data are basing on the months of the year, anything from 1 to 12, 1 and 12 inclusive. All that's normal data. What is our normal data? Outside the limits of 1 and 12. So that means any negative number is abnormal data. Once we're talking about the years, the months in a year. 2, any value greater than 12 is abnormal data. It is not acceptable. It is beyond our range. 3, letters or other non-numeric data, letters like J, A, B, K, L, M, N, all that is abnormal data and it is not acceptable basing on our range, basing on our data that we're trying to input the months of the year. And of course, non-integer values, 1.5, 2.6, 3.8. Of course, our months are not integers, are integers. So anything that is non-integer is not acceptable. Then we have extreme data. What is extreme data? Extreme data is the data at the limits of acceptability. Let me look at my phase, our data, our months of the year. If you look at our months of the year, we have January and December. They are at the extremes. Look at it in this way. We have numbers from 1 to 12. So anything between from 1 to 12 is acceptable. But when we talk about extreme, that one that is at the extreme end of our ranges, that one that is at the verge of going out of range, into going abnormal data, that one that is on the borderline, that one who stays on the borderline is what we call extreme data. For example, in our scenario, our extreme data would be 1 and 12. Now, once we have used the 3 sets of data, the normal data, abnormal data, and extreme data, test our system and has come out okay. The next thing we do is we use live data to test the system. What is live data? Live data is basically data with known outcomes. Live data is usually gotten from the existing system. Now, for example, if I was to enter the months of the year and I use January as my live data. The expected result will be an error message. Why? Because based on the existing system, January as a word is not acceptable because it is a letter. Remember, we're dealing with only numbers 1 to 12. Actual result, data was accepted. Any actions, we check the validation routines on month element need to be altered. So we make sure that if the data was accepted, we go back and redesign and say validation rules, it should be since our expected result is error message, but the data was accepted, so we go back to the system and change the validation rules to exclude all text in the data that is being entered into the database. So basically, live data is data that we get from the current system, and because we know its expected outcome already, we know what should be the outcome. If I'm going to input this data into this system, I know what should be expecting. Basically, we are using live data to work backwards. I know if I do this, it should give me this. So if it doesn't bring this, I go back and change and do what, maybe change a validation method or verification method, or change something in the system so that I get the result I'm expecting out of that. So basically, that's the development and testing phase. We see that we use the development and testing basically to develop and test a system. We are almost completing the system. We have designed it, we have finished it, but how well does it work? Under what circumstances does it work? Does it work under the normal conditions, or do we have to change the conditions? For example, if I'm using a thermometer, what is the maximum temperature it can take? If I'm using a glass, under what temperature will it break? What is its extreme? So basically, we are testing and running all this. Yes, so basically that's the development and the testing phase in the system's life cycle. I hope you enjoyed or you will enjoy this video. Till next time, ciao.